Hello and welcome. Tonight we are going to leave the solid ground behind. We are going to leave behind the noise of the cities, the lights of the streets, and the demands of the day. We are going to travel back in time to a place where the world was quieter, slower, and vast beyond measure. I invite you to find a comfortable position. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Unclench your jaw. Let your hands rest loosely by your side. Close your eyes and let the darkness behind your eyelids become a canvas. Imagine, if you will, the color blue. Not the bright blue of a summer sky, but the deep, heavy indigo blue of the mid-Atlantic Ocean. It is a color that has existed for millions of years, shifting and changing with the light, but always remaining the same. It is December in the year 1872. We are floating in the middle of the ocean, hundreds of miles from the coast of Portugal and hundreds of miles from the islands of the Azores. Here there is no land. There are no birds. There is only the water, stretching out in every direction, a perfect, unbroken circle of horizon. The ocean breathes. Can you hear it? It is a slow, rhythmic respiration. The swell of the water rises and falls, rises and falls. It is the heartbeat of the world. In this vast emptiness, there is a single object, a speck of white against the blue. As we drift closer, moving effortlessly over the waves, the speck resolves into a shape. It is a ship, a brigantine to be precise. She is beautiful. Her hull is painted a stark, clean white, gleaming wet with the spray of the sea. Her wood is dark and seasoned. Her name is painted in clear letters on her stern, Mary Celeste.
She is sailing perfectly. The wind is blowing from the north, a steady, cold breeze that carries the scent of salt and deep water. Her ship catches this wind with grace. Her sails, huge sheets of canvas, are billowed out, tight and full. They are pulling her forward, cutting a path through the waves, leaving a trail of white foam in her wake. From a distance, she looks like the picture of purpose. She looks like a ship on a mission, racing toward her destination with confidence. But as we come closer, as we drift right alongside her hull, we notice something is wrong. It is the silence. A ship of this size, under full sail, should be a hive of activity. There should be the sound of the helmsman turning the great wooden wheel. There should be the shout of the captain, the heavy footsteps of sailors on the deck, the clatter of tin cups from the galley, the smell of pipe smoke or cooking stew. But there is none of that. There is only the sound of the ship herself. The wood groans as she rolls in the swell, a deep timber creak that sounds like an old tree bending in the wind. The rigging, the complex web of ropes and lines, hums a low note as the wind passes through it. The water slaps against the hull. Slosh, hiss, slosh, hiss. There is no one at the wheel. The great wooden wheel spins idly, moving a few inches to the left, a few inches to the right, guided only by the push of the water against the rudder. There is no one on the deck. The planks are scrubbed clean, bleached white by the sun and the salt. The ropes are coiled neatly in some places and trailing loosely in others. The ship is sailing herself. She is a ghost ship gliding across the surface of the world, carrying nothing but silence. Tonight, we are going to step aboard this ship. But I want you to know that we are not here to solve a crime. We are not here to analyze clues with a magnifying glass or to worry about the how and the why. The history books are full of theories, full of arguments and frantic speculation. But tonight, we are not interested in the noise of arguments. Tonight, we are interested in the journey. We are here to witness the atmosphere of a life at sea in the 19th century. We are here to feel the texture of the wood, to smell the scent of the oil lamps, to hear the rain drumming on the skylight of a cozy cabin. The story of the Mary Celeste is often told as a horror story or a riddle, but before it was a riddle, it was a life. It was a home. It was a ship made of oak and pine, built in the cold mists of Nova Scotia. It was a vessel that carried a family, a father, a mother, and a 2-year-old who learned to walk on a floor that was always moving. It was a space filled with the sounds of a sewing machine, the notes of a rosewood organ, and the scratching of a pen in a logbook. So as you lie there, safe in your bed, warm and still, I want you to imagine that you are drifting along with us. The year is 1872. The world is much larger than it is today. There are no satellites watching from above. There are no radios to call for help. When a ship leaves the harbor, it severs its connection to the land. It enters a realm of solitude that we can scarcely imagine today.
To sail is to surrender. You surrender to the wind. You surrender to the tides. You accept that for weeks or months, your entire universe will be confined to 100 feet of wooden deck, surrounded by the infinite, indifferent ocean. It is a lonely feeling, but it is also a peaceful one, a feeling of being suspended in time. The Mary Celeste is drifting, and so are you. Drifting away from the present moment, drifting back through the decades, back through the turn of the century, back past the wars and the inventions, back to a time of canvas and wind. The water is deep here, miles deep. It holds its secrets well. The sun is beginning to set over the Atlantic. The sky is turning from that deep indigo to a bruised purple, and then to a soft charcoal gray. The first stars are appearing, the same stars that the sailors used to navigate, the North Star, Orion. They hang above the masts, steady and bright. The ship sails on, cutting through the twilight. Let us go back to the beginning, before the silence, before the mystery. Let us go back to the smell of the sawdust and the cold northern fog where this ship took her very first breath. Let us go to Nova Scotia. To understand the end of the story, we must go back to the beginning. We must leave the warm waters of the mid-Atlantic and travel north, far north, to a place where the sea is not a deep indigo, but a steel gray, cold and churning. It is the year 1861. We are standing on the shores of Spencer's Island in Nova Scotia, Canada. It is a rugged, beautiful place. Here, the land meets the sea in a violent embrace. This is the edge of the Bay of Fundy, famous for having the highest tides in the world. Twice a day, the ocean rushes in with incredible power, filling the basins and the rivers, and twice a day it retreats, leaving behind miles of wet, glistening mudflats.
The air here is different. It is heavy with moisture. It is a cold, damp air that clings to your coat and settles on your skin. It smells of pine needles, wet earth, and the sharp, briny tang of the Atlantic salt. It is late autumn. The trees, the great forests of spruce and birch that cover the hills, are silent. The ground is covered in a thick carpet of fallen needles and moss. A low mist hangs over the water, obscuring the horizon, making the world feel small and intimate. In this quiet corner of the world, a ship is being born. She does not have a name yet. She is just a skeleton of timber rising from the beach. Close your eyes and imagine the scene of the shipyard. It is not a factory of metal and noise. It is a place of wood and muscle. The ground is covered in sawdust, pale and fragrant. Huge logs, felled from the nearby forests, lie waiting to be shaped. These are trees that stood for 100 years, drinking in the rain and the fog, growing strong and straight. Now they will become the ribs and the spine of a vessel. Listen to the sounds of the work. It is a rhythmic, hypnotic music. Thud, thud, thud. That is the sound of the adze, a curved axe chipping away at a massive oak beam. The shipwrights are shaping the keel, the backbone of the ship. They work slowly, with the patience of men who know that a mistake here means death at sea later. Scrape, scrape, scrape. That is the sound of the planes smoothing the planks of the hull. Long, curling ribbons of wood fall to the ground. The wood is yellow and fresh. There is the smell of fire. A large iron pot sits over a fire on the beach, bubbling with black, sticky tar. The smell is pungent and thick. The men take oakum, loose fibers of old rope, and soak it in the tar. They drive it into the gaps between the planks to make the ship watertight. Tap, tap, tap. The caulking mallets drive the oakum home. It is a dull, repetitive sound, like a heartbeat. Day by day, through the mist and the rain of the Nova Scotia winter, the ship takes form. She is a brigantine, a two-masted vessel. She is sturdy, built to withstand the crushing ice of the north and the gales of the Atlantic. She is 100 feet long, broad in the beam, designed to carry heavy cargo. She is built by a man named Joshua Dewis. He watches her rise with pride. He runs his hand along the smooth curve of her gunwales. He knows every nail, every joint, every plank. Finally, the day comes to give her a name. They do not call her Mary Celeste, not yet. That name belongs to the future. They christen her the Amazon, a name of strength, a name of warrior women, a name that suggests she can conquer the wild waters. She slides into the cold gray waters of the Bay of Fundy for the first time. The water accepts her. She floats high and proud, her masts reaching up toward the overcast sky. She is ready. But the sailors, the men who live their lives on the water, they are a superstitious breed. They watch the signs, they listen to the wind, and they whisper. They say that a ship has a soul. They say that a ship is born with a personality, just like a child. Some ships are happy. They sail easily. They find fair winds. They bring their crews home safe and rich. And some ships
Some ships are born under a shadow. The Amazon is given her first master. His name is Robert McClellan. Captain McClellan is a local man, respected and experienced. He is the son of a sea captain, born to this life. He stands on the deck of the Amazon, breathing in the smell of the new wood and the fresh paint. This is the pinnacle of his career, to command a brand new vessel straight from the yard. He oversees her loading. He barks orders to the crew. He feels the wheel under his hands. He is a man in his prime, strong and healthy. The Amazon prepares for her maiden voyage. She is to sail to London, carrying a cargo of timber. But before the lines are even cast off, before the Amazon can even prove herself in the deep ocean, the shadow falls. It begins with a cough. Captain McClellan, the man who was just standing tall on the quarterdeck, begins to feel a heaviness in his chest. The damp air of Nova Scotia, which he has breathed whole life, suddenly feels like a weight. He retires to his cabin, the new cabin, the one that smells of varnish and sawdust.
He lies down in the narrow bunk. The ship rocks gently in the harbor, a soothing motion that should bring sleep. But the captain does not sleep. He burns with fever. The crew moves quietly on the deck above. They speak in hushed tones. The captain is sick, they say. The old man is down. Days pass. The fog presses against the portholes. The Amazon pulls at her anchor chain, eager to leave, but her master cannot rise. And then, just days after taking command, before the Amazon has completed a single voyage, Captain Robert McClellan dies. He dies in the cabin of the brand new ship. His journey ends before it even begins. The news spreads through the small community of Spencer's Island. The sailors look at the white hull of the Amazon with different eyes now. To a sailor, a death at the very beginning is a terrible omen. It is a mark. They believe that the ship has tasted death. They believe that the soul of the ship has been tainted by the tragedy. She's a rogue, one might whisper, leaning against a piling on the dock, pipe smoke curling around his weathered face. She killed her first master. She's unlucky. Bad stars, another might say, shaking his head. She was born under bad stars. The Amazon does not know this, of course. She is just wood and canvas and iron. She floats innocently in the tide, the water lapping against her sides. Slap, slap, slap. But the reputation sticks. It clings to her like the barnacles that will soon grow on her hull. She is sold. She is moved. She sails eventually. She crosses the Atlantic. She carries lumber and coal and sugar. She proves herself to be a fast sailor. She is a good ship, in a technical sense. But the bad luck seems to follow her, like a seagull trailing a fishing boat. On one voyage, she runs into a fishing weir, a large trap, in Maine, damaging her hull. On another, she collides with a brig in the English Channel, sinking the other vessel. She runs aground. She catches fire in a shipyard during a refit. Each time, she is repaired. Each time, the scars are painted over. The wood is patched. The sails are mended. But the whispers continue. Years pass. The American Civil War comes and goes. The world changes. And the Amazon, the ship with the unlucky name, finds herself shipwrecked on the rocks of Glace Bay, Cape Breton. She is abandoned.
She is left to be broken apart by the waves. It seems that her story is over. A short, troubled life for a troubled ship. But she is not done. She is too strong to die. She is salvaged, pulled from the rocks, bought by Americans. They take her away from the cold mists of Nova Scotia. They take her to New York. They decide to give her a new life, a new identity. They strip away the old wood. They rebuild her upper decks. They make her larger, deeper. They paint her fresh and clean. And most importantly, they take away her name. They scrape the letters A-M-A-Z-O-N off her stern. They want to erase the history. They want to erase the bad luck. They paint a new name in its place, a gentle name, a name that sounds like a prayer.
Mary Celeste, Mary of the heavens. They hope that this new name will protect her. They hope that the curse of the Amazon is left behind in the cold northern waters. It is now 1872. The ship sits in New York Harbor. She looks beautiful, she looks innocent, and she is waiting for her new master, a man named Benjamin Briggs, a man who does not believe in curses, a man who believes in God and in the strength of good oak and in the love of his family. He walks along the dock, looking up at her masts. He sees a good ship. He sees a home for his wife and his daughter. He does not hear the whispers of the old sailors in Nova Scotia. He does not feel the cold breath of the first captain who died in that cabin. He only sees the future. The stage is set. The players are ready. The ocean is waiting.
A ship is nothing without its people. We can speak of timber and iron, of canvas and tar, but without a crew, a vessel is just a hollow shell. It is an inanimate object floating in a void. It is the people who give it a pulse. It is the people who give it a soul. So before we set sail into the cold Atlantic, before we face the wind and the waves, we must meet the souls who walked the decks of the Mary Celeste. We must see them not as names in a dusty history book, not as statistics in a maritime report, and certainly not as ghosts. We must see them as living, breathing human beings. We must step into their lives, feel the warmth of their hands, and understand the love that bound them together. Let us begin with the master, Captain Benjamin Spooner Briggs. Picture him in your mind's eye. He is a man of 37 years. He is a New Englander, born and bred in the coastal town of Wareham, Massachusetts. He comes from a family of captains. The sea is not just his profession, it is his inheritance. It is in his blood. His father was a captain. His brothers are captains. He knows no other life. If you were to look at a photograph of him, and they do exist, captured in the sepia tones of the 19th century, you would see a handsome face. He has a high forehead and a neatly trimmed beard, perhaps peppered with the first signs of gray. His eyes are direct and steady. They are the eyes of a man who has seen storms. They are the eyes of a man who has stood at the wheel while waves as high as cathedrals crashed around him, and he has not blinked. He is a man of discipline, a man of order.
He is a teetotaler. He does not drink alcohol. In a profession known for rough living and rum, Benjamin Briggs is a man of sobriety. He carries a Bible in his sea chest. He reads it every night.
He believes that if you work hard, if you treat your crew fairly, and if you trust in Providence, the sea will respect you. He has spent his life climbing the ranks. He began as a humble cabin boy, scrubbing the decks and learning the knots. He became a mate, learning the stars and the charts. And finally, he became a captain, a master. But this voyage, this specific voyage on the Mary Celeste, represents something special for Benjamin. He is not just an employee this time. He has bought a share in the ship. He has invested his life savings into her. He is a part owner. When he walks the deck, he does not just feel the wood of a company asset. He feels the wood of his own future. He feels the weight of ownership. He walks with a sense of pride. He checks the rigging with a critical eye. He inspects the pumps. He speaks to the crew in a voice that is calm, low, and authoritative. He is the father figure of this floating world. He is the steady hand on the tiller. But on this voyage, he is not alone. Usually, a sea captain's life is a lonely one. It is a life of long months of separation. It is a life of letters that take weeks or months to arrive. It is a life of missing birthdays, missing Christmases, missing the quiet moments of a marriage. But Benjamin Briggs has decided that this time will be different. He has decided to take his world with him. Meet Sarah. Sarah Elizabeth Briggs. She is 31 years old. She is not merely a passenger on this ship. She is a woman of the sea in her own right. She has sailed with Benjamin before. She has crossed the Atlantic. She has seen the Mediterranean. She knows the rhythm of the watches, 4 hours on, 4 hours off. She knows how to brace herself against the table when the ship rolls in a heavy swell. She is the softness in this hard world of wood and rope. We have her letters. In the archives of history, her voice still speaks to us. And when we read them, we do not hear fear. We hear a quiet, observant intelligence. We hear a woman who loves her husband and is willing to follow him to the ends of the earth. She writes to her mother-in-law about the weather. She writes about the ports they visit. She writes about the simple domestic details of life at sea. "It seems like home," she writes. "We are very comfortable."
Imagine her presence on the ship. She brings civilization to the wild ocean. She brings the tablecloths of white linen. She brings the curtains for the portholes to soften the harsh light. She brings her sewing basket filled with colorful threads and silver needles. Imagine her sitting on the deck on a calm afternoon. The sun is shining on her dress, a heavy Victorian dress of dark wool, practical for the sea air. She is sewing, the needle flashing in the light, in and out, a rhythmic, calming motion. She looks up at the horizon, her eyes scanning the line where the sky meets the water. She loves the sea, but she respects it. She knows that the ocean is a moody companion, beautiful and glittering one day, terrible and gray the next. But she is not afraid, because she is with Benjamin, and because she is with Sophia. Sophia. She is the heart of this story. She is the reason the mystery of the Mary Celeste lingers so heavily in our minds, haunting us across the centuries. Sophia Matilda Briggs, 2 years old, a toddler, a tiny, fragile life in a world of giants. Imagine a 2-year-old girl on a sailing ship. To us in the modern world, it seems dangerous, it seems terrifying. But to Sophia, this is simply home. She does not know that the floor is supposed to be still. To her, the world is always moving. The gentle rocking of the ship is her cradle. The sound of the wind in the rigging is her lullaby. The creaking of the timbers is the song the house sings to her.
She has her own small world on the ship. She has her toys, wooden blocks perhaps, worn smooth by handling. A rag doll made by her mother, with button eyes and yarn hair. She plays on the quarterdeck, tethered safely by a long ribbon so she cannot wander to the rail. She watches the sailors working. She mimics them. She pulls on the small piece of rope. She points at the seagulls. She knows the sailors' names. And the sailors, these rough men with calloused hands and faces weathered by the sun and the wind, they soften when they see her. They smile at the little lady. They carve small trinkets for her out of driftwood. They bring her shells they have found in foreign ports. She is the mascot of the ship. She is the reminder of innocence. She is the reminder of why they work so hard. When the weather is fair, she runs on the planks, her laughter mixing with the cry of the birds. When the weather is foul, she stays below, safe in the warm cocoon of the cabin. Let us go there now. Let us go below decks. I want you to visualize the captain's cabin on the Mary Celeste. This is not a dark, damp hole. This is a sanctuary. This is the atmospheric expansion of our story, the place where we can truly rest. You walk down the companionway steps. The air changes. It stops smelling of raw salt and cold wind. It starts to smell of living. It smells of beeswax polish rubbed into the wood. It smells of old paper and leather bindings. It smells of lavender sachets packed in a trunk to keep the clothes fresh. It smells of the sweet, heavy scent of lamp oil. The cabin is surprisingly spacious. It is the main room of a small, floating house. The walls are paneled in dark, rich mahogany and rosewood. The wood glows in the light. It is smooth to the touch, polished by years of care. It reflects the golden light of the lanterns. In the center of the room there is a table. It is bolted to the floor so it will not slide when the ship rolls. On the table, a heavy cloth is spread. There is a crystal decanter secured in a wooden rack. There are books, heavy, leather-bound volumes. Benjamin's library is here. There are books on navigation, filled with charts and numbers. But there are also novels. There are books of poetry. And there is the Bible, its cover worn from use, resting in the center of the table. Light pours in from the skylight above. It is a watery, shifting light. As the waves roll over the glass on the deck above, shadows dance across the floorboards like swimming fish. Light, shadow, a hypnotic underwater feeling. Over in the corner, there is something you might not expect to find on a cargo ship. A musical instrument, a melodeon. It is a small reed organ made of beautiful rosewood. Benjamin bought it for Sarah. He wrestled it down the narrow stairs so she would have music in the middle of the ocean. He wanted her to have a piece of the parlor, a piece of home, right here in the Atlantic. Imagine the sound. It is night. The ship is rocking gently. Outside, the Atlantic is a black, howling void. The waves are 10 feet high. The wind is whistling through the ropes. But inside, the lamps are lit. They cast a warm, golden circle of light that pushes back the darkness. Sarah sits at the melodeon. Her fingers press the ivory keys. She pumps the pedals with her feet. A low, wheezing, beautiful chord fills the small room. It is a sound of comfort. She plays a hymn, Nearer, my God, to thee, or perhaps a lullaby for Sophia. Benjamin sits in his high-backed leather chair. He is smoking a pipe, the sweet smoke curling up to the ceiling beams. He is reading. He looks up and smiles at his wife. He sees the woman he loves creating music in the middle of the wilderness. And in the corner, in a small bunk built into the wall, Sophia is sleeping.
She is tucked under a heavy wool quilt. Her breathing is slow and even, in and out. She is safe. She is warm. This room, this cabin, is a bubble of warmth in a cold universe. It is filled with the things of life. A sewing machine sitting on a side table, its wheel silent for the night. A rack of charts rolled up tight, waiting for the morning. A compass swinging in its brass housing, guiding them even while they sleep. A canister of tea from China. A tin of hard candies for the child. A pair of boots standing by the door. It feels permanent. It feels secure. When you stand in this room, surrounded by the heavy timbers and the personal treasures of the Briggs family, it feels impossible that anything could ever happen to them. The walls are thick, the door is strong, the captain is capable. It is a place of peace. Listen to the sounds of the cabin at night, the tick-tock of the chronometer marking the seconds of their lives, the creak of the wood as the ship leans into the wind, a comforting, familiar groan, the hiss of the oil lamp burning, the soft turn of a page. This is the world they built for themselves, a floating cottage, a wooden island. They are happy here. They are together.
Benjamin, the protector. Sarah, the nurturer. Sophia, the future. They do not know that this cabin will one day be walked through by strangers. They do not know that these books, this organ, this sewing machine will become clues in a mystery that will last for 150 years. They do not know that the silence of this room will one day be the loudest sound in the world. For now, they are just a family, eating their dinner, saying their prayers, watching the stars through the skylight. The Mary Celeste is not a ghost ship yet. She is a home, and she is ready to sail. The date is approaching, November 7th, 1872. The cargo is loaded, 1,701 barrels of industrial alcohol, red oak barrels stored deep in the hold. The water and provisions are stored, enough food for 6 months. The crew is aboard, 7 sailors, hand-picked by Captain Briggs. Good men, Germans, Danes, Americans, men with families of their own. The anchor is weighed, the heavy chain rattles up through the hawse pipe. The ropes are cast off from the pier in New York. The journey begins.
We leave the quiet sanctuary of the cabin now. We ascend the stairs, up through the companionway, and step out onto the deck. But we are not at sea yet. We are in the heart of the world. It is early November, 1872. We are docked at Pier 50 on the East River of New York City. To understand the silence that is coming, we must first understand the noise that they left behind. New York in 1872 is a city of steam and stone. It is a city that is exploding with energy. It is the gateway to America, the engine of the industrial age. Imagine the atmosphere. The air is thick. It smells of coal smoke billowing from the chimneys of the factories and the funnels of the steamships. It smells of roasted chestnuts from the street vendors. It smells of wet wool and horse leather and the brine of the river. If you were to stand on the deck of the Mary Celeste and look toward the land, you would see a forest. Not a forest of trees, but a forest of masts. Hundreds upon hundreds of ships are packed into the harbor. Tall ships, schooners, Briggs, clippers. Their masts rise up like bare winter trees, a tangled web of rigging and spars that blocks out the lower sky. They are docked so closely together that their bowsprits, the long poles extending from the front, hang over the street like wooden lances. Below them, the street is a river of movement. South Street, the street of ships. It is paved with rough cobblestones. Listen to the rhythm of the traffic. Clip-clop, clip-clop, clip-clop. The heavy draft horses, their breath steaming in the cold air, pull wagons loaded with crates. The iron wheels rumble over the stones. Rumble, clatter, rumble, clatter. Men in flat caps and heavy coats move through the fog. Stevedores rolling barrels, merchants checking manifests, sailors from every corner of the globe, China, Liverpool, Hamburg, Valparaiso, speaking a dozen different languages.
It is a chaotic, beautiful, living tapestry. And sitting quietly in the middle of it all, tethered to the pier by thick hemp ropes, is our white lady, the Mary Celeste. She seems patient. She seems ready to leave this noise behind. She is taking on her cargo. This is a crucial detail. The cargo is the weight she will carry across the ocean. It is the reason for the voyage, and perhaps it is the seed of her undoing. Watch the loading process. It is slow and heavy work. The cargo is not gold. It is not silk. It is alcohol. Industrial alcohol. Denatured alcohol. It is raw, potent spirit intended for fortifying Italian wines. It is dangerous stuff. It is volatile. There are 1,701 barrels. 1,701. Imagine the sheer volume. The barrels are made of red oak. They are heavy, bound with iron hoops. Listen to the sound as they are loaded. The wooden ramp is laid down from the pier to the deck. The men roll the barrels. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The hollow sound of the wood rolling over the planks. Then the winch, the creak of the pulley block as the barrels are lowered down into the dark belly of the ship. Creak, thud, creak, thud. Down into the hold, row upon row, tier upon tier. The smell is distinct. Even though the barrels are sealed, there is a faint, sharp scent in the air, the smell of spirits, a chemical, stinging smell that mixes with the tar and the salt. Captain Briggs watches the loading carefully. He knows this cargo is tricky. He knows that alcohol expands when it gets warm. He knows it gives off fumes. He ensures the barrels are packed tight.
He ensures they are chucked, wedged in place with pieces of wood, so they will not roll when the ship begins to sway. He is a careful man. He takes every precaution. He does not know that some of the barrels, made of porous red oak, are perhaps not as tight as they should be. He does not know that 9 of them will eventually be found empty. But for now, the hold is full. The hatches are battened down. The heavy wooden covers are placed over the openings and covered with canvas tarpaulins. The cargo is sealed away in the dark. The ship sits lower in the water now. She is heavy. She is settled. The date arrives. It is Sunday, November 3rd, 1872. The loading is finished. The crew is aboard. But they do not leave yet. Benjamin Briggs is a man of tradition, and he has one final duty to perform. He sits in his cabin, that warm rosewood sanctuary we visited earlier, and he takes out his pen and paper. He writes a letter. It is a letter to his mother, back in Massachusetts. It is the last letter he will ever write. It is the last time his voice will be heard by the world. Listen to his words. They are not the words of a man who is afraid. They are the words of a man who is content. He writes, "My dear mother, we have been here for some time, loading. We seem to have a very good mate and steward, and I hope I shall have a pleasant voyage. We have a fine ship, and we are well provisioned."
He writes about Sarah. He writes about Sophia. He tells his mother that Sophia has been singing little songs to herself. He dips the pen in the inkwell. Scratch, scratch, scratch. He signs it, "Your affectionate son, Benjamin." He folds the paper. He seals it in an envelope. He gives it to a mailboat to take ashore. That piece of paper will survive. It will be read and reread for 100 years. It is a window into a mind that was at peace. He had hope. He had a fine ship. He expected a pleasant voyage. There is a heartbreaking innocence in those words. He had no premonition. No dark shadow crossed his heart. He was simply a son, writing to his mother before going to work.
Tuesday, November 7th, 1872. The day of departure. The weather is crisp. It is a true autumn day. The sky is a pale, hard blue. The wind is blowing from the west. A good wind, a fair wind. It is blowing off the land, ready to push them out to sea. The morning routine begins. On the deck of the Mary Celeste, the silence of the night is broken. "All hands," the mate calls out. The sailors tumble up from the forecastle. They are wearing their heavy wool sweaters and caps. They rub their hands together against the cold. Captain Briggs stands on the quarterdeck. Sarah is beside him, wrapped in a heavy shawl, holding Sophia's hand. They look back at the city of New York. They see the church spires. They see the smoke rising from the chimneys. They see the life they are leaving behind. The order is given. "Cast off!" The heavy hemp ropes, which have held them to the land for weeks, are untied from the iron bollards on the pier. They splash into the water and are hauled aboard, dripping wet. The ship is free.
But she does not sail yet.
The harbor is too crowded. A steam tugboat, a small, powerful vessel with a chugging engine, throws them a line. The tugboat will tow them out. Chug, 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 chug. The tugboat pulls. The Mary Celeste begins to move. Slowly at first, barely a ripple. Then she gathers momentum. She slides away from the pier. She slides away from the cobblestones and the horses. She moves out into the center of the East River. The city begins to recede. The buildings get smaller. The noise of the traffic begins to fade. The clatter and the shout of New York turn into a low, distant hum. They pass the Battery. They pass the Statue of Liberty. No, wait, the statue is not there yet. It is 1872. Liberty Island is empty. The pedestal is waiting. The harbor is open. They move out past Staten Island. The water changes color. It shifts from the muddy brown of the river to the gray-green of the bay. The tugboat pulls them all the way out to the open water, past the Sandy Hook Lighthouse. And then the moment of separation. The tugboat blows its whistle, a long, lonely blast of steam. Whoo! They drop the tow line. The tugboat turns around, churning the water white, and heads back to the city. The Mary Celeste is alone. Captain Briggs looks up at the masts. He looks at the wind tails fluttering. "Set the sails," he orders. This is the moment the ship comes alive. The sailors climb the rigging. They scramble up the ratlines, higher and higher, until they are small shapes against the sky. They move out onto the yards. They untie the gaskets that hold the sails.
The canvas drops. Whoosh. Huge sheets of white canvas fall and catch the wind. Snap. The ship heels over. She leans to the side as the wind grabs her. She shudders like a horse breaking into a gallop. The water at the bow begins to foam. Hiss. Splash. She is sailing. Sarah stands at the rail, watching the land disappear. The coast of America becomes a thin line, then a smudge, then nothing. The horizon closes behind them. They are in the Atlantic now. The world of men is gone. The world of water has begun. The silence descends. The only sounds now are the sounds of the ship, the creak, the hum, the splash. They are sailing toward the sunrise. They are sailing toward Gibraltar. They are sailing toward a mystery that will never be solved. And so the land is gone. The journey has truly begun.
Time changes when you leave the land. On land, time is measured in meetings, in train schedules, in the opening and closing of shops. It is chopped up into little frantic pieces. But at sea, time becomes a circle. It becomes a liquid thing. It stretches out, long and slow, like the horizon itself. For the 10 souls aboard the Mary Celeste, the world has shrunk. The entire universe is now just 100 feet long and 25 feet wide. There is no news from the outside. There are no politics. There are no neighbors. There is only the ship, the wind, and the water. Day follows night. Night follows day. The life of the ship settles into a rhythm. It is a rhythm as old as sailing itself. It is the rhythm of the watch. 4 hours on, 4 hours off. Listen to the bell. Clang, clang. It hangs near the wheel. Every half hour the sand in the hourglass runs out and the bell is struck. It is the heartbeat of the vessel. It tells the men when to sleep and when to wake. Imagine the routine of the sailors. There are 7 of them, 4 Germans, 1 Dane, 2 Americans. They are strong men with hands that are stained with tar and calloused by rope. At midnight, the bell rings. The starboard watch comes on deck. They climb up from the forecastle, the small, cramped living quarters at the front of the ship. They are rubbing sleep from their eyes. They are pulling on their oilskins, heavy coats made of canvas soaked in linseed oil to keep out the wet. They take their places, 1 man to the wheel, 1 man to the lookout at the bow. The others stand ready, watching the sails, watching the wind. For 4 hours they stand in the dark. They watch the stars wheel overhead. They listen to the hiss of the water. They do not speak much. There is no need for small talk in the middle of the Atlantic. They know their job. At 4 a.m., the bell rings again. Clang, 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 clang. 8 bells. The watch changes. The men who have been sleeping come up. The men who have been working go down. They dive into their warm bunks, still wearing their clothes, and fall asleep instantly, rocked by the motion of the ship. This is the cycle, on and off, waking and sleeping. It creates a trance. The days blur together. Tuesday feels like Friday. Sunday feels like Wednesday. There is a comfort in this repetition. It is a simple life. You do your duty, you eat, you sleep. You trust the captain, you trust the ship. Let us focus on the sensory details of this life. Close your eyes and imagine the taste of the air. It is salt, pure salt. It coats everything. If you lick your lips, you taste the ocean. If you touch the railing, your hand comes away damp and sticky. The salt gets into your clothes. It gets into your hair. It stiffens the ropes until they are hard as iron bars. Imagine the food. There are no fresh vegetables here, no fresh meat. The diet is simple, preserved, and brown. Salt pork packed in barrels of brine. Salt beef boiled until it is tender. Hardtack, thick square biscuits made of flour and water, baked until they are as hard as stone. You have to soak them in your tea to eat them. And tea, gallons of hot, strong tea, sweetened with molasses. It is humble food, but out here, in the cold wind, it tastes like a feast. The smell of the salt pork frying in the galley is the best smell in the world when you have been standing in the freezing spray for 4 hours. The ship is a sensory orchestra. Listen to the wood. The Mary Celeste is built of timber. She is flexible. As she rides over a wave, she bends slightly. The planks rub against each other. Creak, groan, squeak.
It is not a scary sound. It is a comforting sound. It means the ship is working. It means she is yielding to the sea, not fighting it. It is the sound of a basket weaving and unweaving. Listen to the wind. It plays the rigging like a harp. When the wind is light, it whistles softly. When the wind is strong, it howls, It vibrates the ropes until you can feel the hum in the deck beneath your feet. And the weather. The first 2 weeks of the voyage are not easy. The Atlantic in November is a restless beast. The logbook, which was found later, tells us the story. They hit heavy weather almost immediately. Fresh breeze, the captain writes, then heavy squalls, then gale. But do not imagine this as a terrifying movie scene. Do not imagine panic. Imagine the storm as a cradle. The waves grow large, they rise up, gray and white-capped, higher than the deck. The ship climbs the face of the wave, up, 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 and then slides down the other side, down, down, down.
It is a massive, rhythmic motion, like a giant hand rocking a baby. Rock and slide, rock and slide. Inside the cabin, the world is tilted. Sarah Briggs learns to walk at a 45-degree angle. She learns to wedge herself into the corner of the sofa. She watches the lamp swing back and forth on its gimbal, a brass ring that keeps the light level even when the room is upside down. Swing and return, swing and return. The rain drums against the skylight. It sounds like 1,000 fingers tapping on the glass. Tap, 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 tap. It is cozy in here. The storm is outside, raging and blustering, but inside, the fire is lit in the small stove. The walls are thick. The water cannot get in. Sarah is a mother first and a sailor second. Her main concern is Sophia. Sophia is 2. She does not understand why the floor is trying to throw her down. She might be frightened by the loud thunder or the sudden lurch of the hull. So Sarah creates a bubble of calm. She goes to the melodeon, the rosewood organ strapped to the wall. She sits on the stool, bracing her feet wide so she doesn't fall. She begins to pump the pedals. Wheeze, hum. She plays.
Eternal Father, strong to save, whose arm hath bound the restless wave. The music fills the small cabin. It is a sound of order in a world of chaos. Sophia sits on the floor, playing with her wooden blocks. She looks up at her mother. She sees Sarah's face, calm, smiling, focused on the music. And Sophia relaxes. If Mother is playing music, then everything is fine. If Mother is smiling, then the storm is just a game. The captain comes down from the deck. He is dripping wet. His beard is soaked with rain. He takes off his heavy oilskin coat and hangs it by the door. He smells of cold air and wet wool. He warms his hands by the stove. He nods to Sarah. He winks at Sophia. "She's riding well," he says. "She's a good ship." He pours himself a cup of hot tea. He sits in his chair, bracing his legs against the motion. He listens to the music. This is the routine. The storm rages for days, but life goes on. The cook bakes bread in the galley, timing the kneading of the dough with the roll of the ship. The sailors mend sails in the forecastle, telling stories of other storms, other ships, other girls in other ports. The cat, if there was a ship's cat, and there almost always was, curls up in the warmest spot it can find and sleeps. They are a tiny, self-contained world floating in the gray void. They are moving east, always east, toward the Azores, toward the sunrise. The days turn into weeks.
November 10th, November 15th, November 20th. The weather begins to change. The storms of the American coast are left behind. The air grows slightly warmer. The gray sky begins to break apart, revealing patches of blue. The rhythm slows down. The heavy rolling of the gale turns into a gentle, long swell. The ship stops fighting and starts gliding. The sails are fully set now. The royals, the topgallants, the highest sails are unfurled to catch the lighter breeze. The Mary Celeste looks like a white cloud skimming the water. It is the champagne sailing that sailors dream of. The routine becomes even more hypnotic. Scrub the decks in the morning. Swish, scrub. Swish, scrub. Polish the brass. Check the cargo.
Ah, the cargo. Every day the mate goes down to the hold to check the barrels. He checks the temperature. He sniffs the air. Does he smell the alcohol? Does he smell the fumes leaking from the red oak? Perhaps. Perhaps there is a faint, sweet chemical smell in the dark, but it is not enough to cause alarm. Not yet. For now, it is just a smell in the background, a detail in the routine. The family is happy. Sarah writes in her diary, or so we imagine. She notes that Sophia has learned a new word. She notes that the sunset last night was a brilliant, fiery red. She does not know that she is writing the final chapter of her life. She does not know that the silence is waiting for them. But for now, let us stay in this moment of peace, the ship rocking gently, the music playing, the tea steaming in the cup, the vast, endless, comforting rhythm of the sea. Rock and slide, rock and slide. They are safe. They are together, and the ocean is carrying them forward. We must now leave the Mary Celeste. We must leave Benjamin and Sarah and Sophia. We must leave them in that bubble of time, sailing toward their destiny. We must shift our gaze. We must look across the miles of empty ocean to another vessel, a vessel that is following the same path, just a few days behind. Her name is the Dei Gratia. It is a Latin name. It means, by the grace of God. She is a brigantine, very similar to the Mary Celeste. She is about the same size, built of the same wood, sailing under the same flag. She, too, is carrying a cargo across the Atlantic, petroleum in her case. Her captain is a man named David Morehouse. Captain Morehouse is a friend of Benjamin Briggs. This is one of the strange, poetic details of this story. The ocean is vast, millions of square miles of nothingness, and yet the two main players in this drama were not strangers, they were friends. Just a few weeks ago, back in New York, before the ropes were cast off, they had dinner together. Imagine the scene. A warm restaurant in the gaslit streets of Manhattan, the smell of cigar smoke and roasted meat, the clinking of glasses. Benjamin Briggs and David Morehouse sitting at a table, two captains, two masters of their trade. They would have talked about the things captains talk about, the freight rates, the weather, the cost of provisions. "When do you sail, Ben?" Morehouse might have asked. "Tuesday," Briggs would have replied. "And you?" "A few days later. I'm waiting for my cargo." They might have shaken hands. They might have wished each other fair winds. They might have said, "I'll see you in Gibraltar." It was a casual farewell, the kind of goodbye you say when you expect to see the person again in a month. They did not know that their next meeting would be different.
The Dei Gratia leaves New York on November 15th, 8 days after the Mary Celeste. Her voyage is harder. While the Mary Celeste found fair winds after the initial storms, the Dei Gratia fights the weather the whole way. She battles heavy seas. She loses a part of her bulwark. Her crew is wet, tired, and cold. Captain Morehouse is a tired man. He stands on his quarterdeck, his eyes red from the salt spray, watching the compass. He is pushing his ship. He wants to get to Gibraltar. He wants to get out of this endless gray washing machine of an ocean. The days grind on. November turns into December. The weather finally breaks. The storms recede. The sky clears. It is now Wednesday, December 4th, 1872. The time is about 1 p.m. The Dei Gratia is sailing roughly midway between the Azores and the coast of Portugal. The coordinates are 38 degrees 20 minutes north, 17 degrees 15 minutes west. It is a beautiful afternoon. The wind is blowing from the north, a steady, crisp breeze. The sea is relatively calm, though there is still a long swell running from the storms of the previous weeks. On the deck of the Dei Gratia, the routine is unfolding. The watch is on duty. A sailor named John Johnson is at the wheel. He is steering the ship, his eyes fixed on the horizon. And then he sees it, a speck. "Sail ho!" he calls out.
It is a common enough cry. Ships pass each other in these shipping lanes. Usually you see a sail, you check your course. Maybe you signal a greeting, and you pass on. Captain Morehouse comes on deck. He brings his spyglass, his telescope. He extends the brass tubes and lifts it to his eye. He focuses on the white speck in the distance. It is a brigantine. She is about 5 or 6 miles away. She is sailing on a port tack, meaning the wind is coming over her left side. But as Captain Morehouse watches, he frowns. Something is wrong. A sailor knows how a ship should move. A ship under command, a ship with a man at the wheel, moves with intention. She holds her course. She cuts through the waves cleanly. But this ship, this stranger, is moving oddly. She is yawing. She swings to the left, then swings to the right. She luffs up into the wind, her sails shaking and flapping, and then falls off again. She looks like a drunk man stumbling down a hallway. She is not being steered. "She's acting queerly," Morehouse mutters to his mate, Oliver Devoe. "Maybe they're asleep," Devoe suggests. "Or maybe they're in distress." Morehouse watches for a long time. The gap between the two ships is closing. The Dei Gratia is faster, catching up to the drifting vessel. Through the glass, Morehouse can see the details now. He sees that her sails are set in a strange way. Her jib and 4 topmast sailstay are set on the starboard tack, but the vessel is on the port tack. This is wrong. It's sloppy. No captain would allow his sails to be set against the wind like that. He sees that some of her sails are torn. The lower 4 topsail is hanging by its corners. But the most chilling detail is what he doesn't see. He doesn't see a soul.
There is no one at the wheel. There is no one on the lookout. There is no smoke coming from the galley chimney. The deck is deserted. The ship is a ghost. A feeling of unease begins to spread through the crew of the Dei Gratia. Sailors are superstitious men. A ship sailing itself is unnatural. It goes against the laws of the sea. "Signal her," Morehouse orders. They run up a set of signal flags, a universal maritime code. "Do you need assistance?" They wait. The flags snap in the wind. There is no answer. The strange ship does not change course. She does not run up a flag in return. She just keeps yawing, swinging back and forth in the swell, silent and indifferent. They are closer now, only a few hundred yards away. Morehouse can read the name on her stern. He lowers the telescope. His face goes pale. He knows that name. He knows that ship. Mary Celeste. His mind races. Ben Briggs is a good sailor, a careful man. He would never leave his ship drifting like this. He has his wife aboard, his child. Something has happened, Morehouse says. Something bad. The silence of the Mary Celeste drifts across the water to them. It is a heavy silence. It is louder than the wind. The crew of the Dei Grazia gathers at the rail. They stare at the white hull. They are looking for signs of life. A hand waving. A head popping up from a hatch. Nothing. Just the empty wheel spinning. Just the torn sail flapping. Snap, snap, snap. "Mr. DeVoe," Morehouse says to his mate, "lower the boat. Board her. It is an order that changes history." They swing out the small wooden rowboat. Oliver DeVoe and two sailors, John Wright and John Johnson, climb in. They take oars. They lower the boat into the heaving Atlantic. Splash. They begin to row. Stroke, stroke, stroke.
The distance between the living ship and the dead ship shrinks. As they get closer, the Mary Celeste looms above them. She looks huge from the water level. Her white sides are streaked with rust. The water slaps against her hull with a hollow, echoing sound. Thud, splash, thud, splash. DeVoe looks up at the rail. He is looking for a face. He is hoping, praying to see his friend Ben Briggs looking down at him. But there is only the blue sky and the empty deck. The rowboat bumps against the side of the Mary Celeste. DeVoe stands up. He reaches for the chain plates, the iron fittings on the side of the ship. He pulls himself up. He swings his leg over the rail. His boot hits the deck. Thump. He stands there for a moment, listening. He expects to hear a groan of pain, or a cry for help, or the sound of a struggle. But he hears nothing. Only the wind whistling through the rigging. Only the creak of the empty ship. "Ahoy!" he shouts. "Is anyone aboard?" His voice is swallowed by the ocean. He is alone. He takes one step forward, and then another. He begins the search.
We are now standing on the deck of the Mary Celeste. The date is December 4th, 1872. The time is roughly 3 p.m. Oliver DeVoe, the first mate of the Dei Grazia, stands alone near the rail. Behind him, in the small rowboat bobbing on the swell, two of his sailors wait nervously. They are watching him. They are waiting for a signal. But DeVoe does not signal. He just stands there, listening. This is the moment the world has been waiting for. This is the moment where the facts end and the mystery begins. Imagine the sensation of standing on a deserted ship in the middle of the ocean. It feels wrong. It feels like walking into a house where the dinner is on the table, but the family has vanished. The ship feels alive. She is moving. She is breathing.
The wood is expanding and contracting. The sails are pulling. But there is no heartbeat. DeVoe takes a breath. The air smells of salt and damp wood. He calls out again, "Captain Briggs, ahoy!" His voice echoes against the white sails. It bounces off the deckhouse, and then it is swallowed by the wind. Whoosh! No answer. He begins to walk. Thud, thud, thud. His heavy sea boots sound incredibly loud on the hollow deck. He walks aft, toward the back of the ship, toward the wheel. He inspects the helm. The wheel is spinning loosely. It is not lashed, meaning no one tied it down. It has been left to turn freely. The gear is in good condition. There is no damage. He looks at the binnacle, the brass housing that holds the compass. The glass is broken. The compass card is knocked out of place. It looks like someone might have tried to grab it in a hurry, or perhaps a heavy wave smashed the glass. He looks over the side. He sees something trailing in the water. It is a rope, a thick, strong rope, the main peak halyard. It is tied to the ship, but the other end is dragging deep in the ocean, disappearing into the blue. Why is a rope trailing? A sailor never leaves a line trailing. It creates drag. It is dangerous. He looks for the lifeboat. The Mary Celeste carried a small yawl boat, a lifeboat, strapped across her main hatch. DeVoe looks at the hatch. The boat is gone. The railings where the boat would have been launched are removed. They are lying on the deck. This is a crucial clue. It means the departure was not a panic. It was not an explosion that blew everyone into the sea. They took the time to remove the rail. They took the time to launch the boat. DeVoe moves forward. He walks toward the galley, the ship's kitchen. This is where the legends begin. You may have heard the stories. You may have heard that the boarders found a warm breakfast on the table. You may have heard that there were eggs still boiling in the pot, or a chicken roasting in the oven, or cups of tea that were still steaming. These are the stories that have been told around campfires for 100 years. They are the stories that make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. The idea that the crew vanished in a split second, right in the middle of a meal. But we are here for the truth, and the truth is quieter and perhaps sadder than the legend. DeVoe steps into the galley.
It is a small, narrow room. It smells of stale grease and cold ash. There is no fire in the stove. The stove is cold. It has been cold for days. There is no breakfast on the table. There are no boiling eggs. The pots and pans are cleaned and put away. The shelves are tidy. But the floor is wet. There is a foot of water sloshing around in the galley. The skylight above is open. The windows are open. The ocean has been washing in for days, soaking the floor, putting out the fire. It is a scene of abandonment, yes, but not of instant vanishing. It looks like a kitchen that was closed down for the night and then left to the elements. DeVoe leaves the galley. He walks back toward the stern, toward the deckhouse, toward the captain's cabin. This is the sanctuary we visited earlier, the warm rosewood room. He reaches the door. It is closed but not locked, a sliding door. He pushes it open. Rumble, click. He steps inside. The light is dim. The skylight above has been boarded up with canvas to keep the heavy seas out, so the room is in shadow. The air here is stale. It smells of damp wool and unwashed clothes.
DeVoe looks around. The room is wet, not flooded, but damp. Water has trickled in through the skylight and soaked the floorboards. But despite the dampness, the room is orderly. This is the most haunting part. It does not look like a crime scene. It does not look like a fight occurred here. There is no blood, there are no overturned chairs, there is no sign of violence. It looks like the family just stepped out. He looks at the table. The table is set for a meal, but not a breakfast. There are no plates of food. But the racks are in place. The decanter is safe. He looks at the melodeon, the rosewood organ. It is silent. The lid is closed. Sarah's music is gone.
He looks at the sewing machine. It is sitting on the side table. It is covered. Sarah had put the cover back on. She had finished her work. She had tidied up. He looks at the floor. Scattered on the floor are toys. Small wooden blocks. A doll. They are lying there, right where Sophia left them. Imagine DeVoe standing there, a rough sailor, looking down at a child's toy on the floor of an abandoned ship. He has children of his own. He knows what this means. He walks over to the bunk, the captain's bed. The bed is not made. The sheets are rumpled. The pillows are indented. And on the smaller bunk, the child's bed, the impression of a small body is still visible on the mattress. It looks as though she was lifted up from sleep. It looks as though they left in a hurry, but not in a panic. They grabbed what they needed. DeVoe checks the captain's sea chest. The ship's papers are gone. The chronometer, the expensive timekeeping watch, is gone. The sextant, the navigation tool, is gone. These are the things a captain takes when he is abandoning ship. He takes the tools he needs to navigate. He takes the ship's legal papers. But he left his pipe. He left his tobacco. He left his money. DeVoe finds a canister of money in the desk. It is untouched. This rules out pirates. Pirates would have taken the gold. Pirates would have ransacked the cabin. Pirates would have overturned the mattresses looking for hidden valuables. But nothing has been touched. The money is sitting there, useless. He finds Sarah's jewelry box. It is there. Her rings, her necklaces, left behind. Why? Why would a woman leave her wedding ring? Why would a captain leave his money? Only if they thought they were dying. Only if they thought the ship was about to explode or sink, and they had no time for material things. They only had time for their lives. DeVoe moves to the first mate's cabin. He finds the logbook on the desk. He opens it. The pages are damp. He turns to the last entry. It is dated November 25th at 8 a.m. That is 10 days ago. 10 days of silence. The entry is normal. It gives their position, 6 miles off the island of Santa Maria in the Azores. It notes the weather. It courses the north. There is no mention of trouble, no mention of a leak, no mention of a mutiny,
No mention of a sea monster. Just a normal morning, and then the pen was put down and never picked up again. DeVoe closes the book. He goes back out onto the deck. He checks the pumps. He drops a sounding rod down the pump well to check the water level in the hold. He pulls it up. It shows about 3.5 feet of water. This is a lot of water for a ship, but it is not fatal. The Mary Celeste is a sturdy ship. She could float with that much water for months. She is not sinking. So why did they leave? He walks to the forward hatch, the main cargo hatch. The cover is off. It is lying on the deck. He looks down into the darkness of the hold. He smells it. The smell is strong here. It is the smell of alcohol.
The fumes are rising up from the darkness. It is a sharp, stinging scent. He climbs down the ladder into the hold. It is dark. He strikes a match. No, he doesn't. He is too smart for that. If there are alcohol fumes, a match would blow the ship to pieces. He waits for his eyes to adjust. He sees the barrels. Hundreds of them. They look secure. They are not rolling around. But the smell is undeniable. He climbs back up. He takes a breath of fresh air. He stands in the center of the ship. He turns in a slow circle. He sees the empty wheel. He sees the trailing rope. He sees the missing lifeboat. He sees the open hatch. He sees the child's toy on the cabin floor. The pieces of the puzzle are all here, but the picture they make is terrifying. It is a picture of a mistake, a tragic, fatal mistake. They thought the ship was sinking, or they thought the ship was about to explode from the fumes. They panicked. They launched the lifeboat. They all got in. Benjamin, Sarah, Sophia, and the 7 crewmen, 10 people in a small open boat. They tied the boat to the ship with a long rope, the rope that is now trailing in the water. They wanted to stay close. They wanted to wait and see if the ship would blow up. But then the wind picked up. The Mary Celeste, with her sails still set, began to move. She gathered speed. The rope pulled tight, and then, snap, the rope broke.
DeVoe looks at the frayed end of the rope trailing in the water. He can see it in his mind. He can see the Mary Celeste sailing away empty, sailing away safe. And he can see the small lifeboat bobbing in the wake. He can see Benjamin Briggs standing up, shouting. He can see Sarah clutching Sophia. He can see them rowing with all their strength, trying to catch the white ship. But the ship is faster. She is a creature of the wind. She pulls away. She gets smaller and smaller. She becomes a speck on the horizon, and then she is gone, and they are left alone in the middle of the Atlantic, in a small boat, with no water, with no food, with no compass. DeVoe shivers. It is not the cold wind. It is the horror of the realization. The ship didn't kill them. The ocean didn't kill them. Fear killed them. He walks back to the rail. He looks down at his own men in the rowboat. "There is no one," he calls down. His voice is flat. "She is abandoned." He looks back one last time at the empty deck. The Mary Celeste creaks. She rolls gently in the swell. She seems to be waiting for her master to return. She seems to be waiting for the child to come back and play with the blocks. But they are never coming back. DeVoe swings his leg over the rail. He climbs down into the rowboat. He pushes off from the white hull. As they row back to the Dei Gratia, he watches the Mary Celeste. She looks so peaceful. She looks so beautiful against the blue sky. She is the perfect ghost.
And so the mystery is found, but the journey is not over. The ship must be sailed. We have walked the deck. We have seen the empty cabin. We have felt the silence. Now we must try to understand. When a puzzle is left unfinished, the human mind cannot rest. We need to find the missing pieces. We need to close the circle. For 150 years, the world has asked, why? Why would a seasoned captain abandon a sound ship? Why would a mother leave her home in the middle of the ocean? Why would 10 people step off a solid wooden deck and into a fragile, open boat? To find the answer, we must look at what was not there. The clues are in the absences. Let us look at the first missing piece, the lifeboat. The Mary Celeste carried a yawl boat. It was a small, sturdy craft lashed across the main hatch. It was their escape pod. When Oliver DeVoe boarded the ship, the boat was gone. But it wasn't just gone. The way it was gone tells a story. The railings, the wooden barriers on the side of the ship, had been removed. They were lying on the deck. This takes time. You have to unbolt them. You have to lift them out. This tells us that the departure was not a sudden, violent panic. It was not an explosion that blew everyone into the water in a split second. It was a controlled evacuation. Captain Briggs gave the order, "Prepare the boat." The sailors moved with purpose. They cleared the rail. They unlashed the boat. They lowered it into the water. They had time, but not much time. They didn't take extra food. They didn't take extra water. They didn't take their clothes. They took only the essentials for navigation: the chronometer, the sextant, the ship's papers. This tells us that Captain Briggs believed they would be coming back. He didn't think they were leaving forever. He thought they were leaving for an hour, maybe 2. He thought they were just getting off the ship to be safe for a moment, and then they would climb back aboard. So what made them get off? What was the threat? Let us look at the second missing piece, the alcohol. When the ship was eventually unloaded in Genoa months later, the workers found something interesting. Out of the 1,701 barrels of alcohol, 9 were empty. 9 barrels. That is about 450 gallons of raw spirit. Where did it go?
The barrels were made of red oak. Red oak is a porous wood. It has microscopic holes. Alcohol is a thin liquid. It can seep through the wood. And when alcohol seeps out, it evaporates. It turns into gas. It turns into fumes. Imagine the hold of the Mary Celeste in the days leading up to the disappearance. The ship is sailing through warmer waters now. The temperature is rising. The alcohol in the barrels is expanding. The 9 red oak barrels begin to leak. Slowly, silently, the hold begins to fill with fumes. These are not just bad smells. These are explosive fumes, industrial strength. If a spark were to strike, if a sailor were to walk in with a lit pipe, the entire ship would be blown to matchsticks. Now, put yourself in the mind of Captain Briggs. He is a responsible man. He has his wife and daughter on board. He is carrying a cargo he knows is dangerous. Perhaps on the morning of November 25th, there was a sound, a rumble. Alcohol fumes can expand and burp. They can blow the hatch covers off. Imagine a sudden loud boom from the hold. The hatch cover flies into the air. Smoke, or what looks like smoke, pours out. The smell hits them, a wave of stinging chemical air. "She's going to blow!" a sailor shouts. Captain Briggs has seconds to decide. If he stays and the ship explodes, they all die. If he gets into the lifeboat, they might survive. He makes the only choice a father can make. Abandon ship! But he is smart. He doesn't want to drift away. He wants to stay close. He wants to wait and see if the ship explodes. If it doesn't, they will climb back on. So he orders a rope to be tied, a tow line.
They tie one end of the main peak halyard, that long, strong rope, to the stern of the Mary Celeste. They tie the other end to the lifeboat. They all climb in. Benjamin, Sarah clutching Sophia, the 7 crewmen. They push off. They drift back to the end of the rope. The rope goes taut. They sit there, bobbing in the wake of the ship. They are watching. They are waiting for the explosion. They wait, and they wait, but the explosion never comes. The fumes vent into the open air. The danger passes. The ship is safe. "All right," Briggs might have said. "It's clear. Pull us back in." But then, the tragedy of physics intervenes. The wind picks up. A sudden gust hits the sails of the Mary Celeste. Remember, her sails are still set. She is still a sailing ship. When the wind hits her, she leaps forward. The rope snaps tight. It vibrates with the tension. The lifeboat is heavy. It is dragging in the water. And the rope is old. Or perhaps it was tied in a hurry. Snap! The sound is like a gunshot. The rope breaks. Suddenly, the connection is severed. The Mary Celeste surges ahead. She is free. She catches the wind and begins to sail. The lifeboat stops. Without the tow, it loses all momentum. It sits dead in the water. Imagine the horror of that moment. Captain Briggs stands up in the boat. "Row!" he screams. "Row for your lives!" The sailors grab the oars. They pull until their muscles burn. They pull until their lungs scream. But a rowboat cannot catch a brigantine under full sail. They watch as the white ship gets smaller. They watch as the gap widens, 10 yards, 100 yards, a mile. They can see the empty deck. They can see the wheels spinning. They can see the home they just left. The cabin with the warm stove, the pantry with the food, the water casks, the beds. It is all right there, just out of reach. They watch as the Mary Celeste sails over the horizon. She disappears into the blue, and they are left alone. This is the true tragedy of the Mary Celeste. It was not a murder. It was not a monster. It was a mistake. It was a series of small, logical decisions that added up to a catastrophe. The decision to carry alcohol. The decision to use red oak barrels. The decision to evacuate as a precaution. The decision to trust a single rope. It is a tragedy of error. Imagine the silence in the lifeboat after the ship disappears. The ocean is huge, the sky is huge, and they are so small. They have no water, they have no food, they have no shelter from the sun or the cold night. We do not know how long they lasted. Perhaps a day, perhaps two. Maybe they prayed. Maybe Sarah sang to Sophia to keep her calm. Maybe Benjamin held his wife's hand and asked for forgiveness. The Atlantic is deep. It is indifferent. It does not care about mistakes. Eventually, the sea took them. There were no bodies ever found, no wreckage of the small boat. They simply vanished into the vastness of the water. Meanwhile, the Mary Celeste sailed on. She sailed on for 10 days, alone. She steered herself. She rode the waves. She survived the squalls. She was a faithful ship. She was trying to complete her voyage. She was trying to deliver her cargo. She didn't know she had lost her masters. She didn't know she was a ghost. When the Dei Gratia found her, she was waiting. She was waiting for someone to take the wheel. This is why the story haunts us. It is not because of what we don't know. It is because of what we do know. We know that they were safe. We know that if they had just stayed on board, if they had just waited 5 more minutes, if they had just trusted the ship, they would have lived. They would have sailed to Genoa. They would have delivered the alcohol. They would have returned to America. Sophia would have grown up. Benjamin would have retired. But they stepped off. It is a reminder of how fragile life is. One decision, one moment of fear, one broken rope, and the line between life and death is crossed. The missing pieces are not missing. They are just invisible. They are lost in the wake of the ship. The story of the humans is over. The lifeboat has vanished into the mist. The voices of Benjamin, Sarah, and Sophia have been silenced by the wind. But the story of the ship, that continued. Wood and iron are more patient than flesh and blood. They endure. And so the Mary Celeste did not stop. She was still a vessel. She still had a job to do. Captain Morehouse of the Dei Gratia put 3 of his own men aboard her. It was a difficult task. Imagine being one of those 3 men. You are asked to sail a ship that usually requires 8 strong sailors. You are asked to sleep in the bunks of men who have just vanished. They sailed her for 600 miles. It was a quiet voyage. They spoke in hushed tones. They stood at the wheel, steering a ship that had steered herself for 10 days. They listened to the wind whistling through the rigging, wondering if it was whispering the secrets of what had happened. They brought her into the harbor of Gibraltar on the morning of December 13th, 1872. She sailed in quietly. She dropped her anchor. Splash. The chain rattled down into the water. And then the world descended upon her. The Mary Celeste became the most famous ship in the world almost overnight. But it was a fame born of suspicion. The authorities in Gibraltar did not believe in accidents. They did not believe in bad luck. They believed in crime. There was an inquiry. A man named Solly Flood, the Attorney General of Gibraltar, was determined to find a villain. He looked at the ship with cold, analytical eyes. He saw the cuts on the rail and said, "This is where they were pushed over." He found a sword under the captain's bed that was discolored, and he said, "This is blood." He looked at the logbook and said, "This has been falsified." He wanted a pirate. He wanted a mutineer. He wanted a drunken crew who had murdered their captain in a rage. But the Mary Celeste gave him nothing.
The blood on the sword turned out to be rust. The cuts on the rail were just wear and tear from loading cargo. The alcohol in the crew's bellies was non-existent. They were good, sober men. The inquiry dragged on for 3 months. It was a circus of theories and accusations. But in the end, there was no proof. There was no body. There was no weapon. The court released the ship, but they did not clear her name. They let her go with a shadow hanging over her, a shadow of doubt. The Mary Celeste was returned to her owners. She was sailed back to America. But she was changed. She was no longer just a merchant brigantine. She was a legend. She was a ghost ship. And the sea has a long memory. Sailors are superstitious men. They read the signs. They listen to the stories in the taverns and the boarding houses. And the story of the Mary Celeste was a dark one. They called her a rogue. They said she was cursed. They said she had a hunger for crews. When her owners tried to hire men for the next voyage, the sailors turned away. They would look at her white hull in the harbor and shake their heads. "Not that one," they would say. "I'll not sail on a tomb." She was sold, and sold again, and sold again. 17 times in 13 years.
She passed from hand to hand like a coin that no one wants to keep. She carried cotton. She carried lumber. She carried cattle. She did the hard, unglamorous work of the merchant trade. But she was a sad ship. You could see it in her lines. Her white paint began to peel, revealing the gray wood beneath. Her proud masts, which had once held the sails that caught the trade winds, grew tired. Her rigging grew slack. She was deteriorating. The bad luck that had begun in Nova Scotia when she was the Amazon seemed to be closing in on her. Finally, in 1885, 13 years after the mystery, she met her end. Her final captain was a man named Gilman Parker. He was not a man of honor like Benjamin Briggs. He was a man who saw the ship not as a vessel, but as a tool for fraud. He loaded her with a cargo of junk, old boots, cheap cat food, scrap, and insured it as valuable goods. He planned to wreck her. He planned to kill the Mary Celeste for the insurance money. It was a shameful end for a famous ship. He sailed her to Haiti. He steered her toward the Rochelial Reef, a jagged spine of coral hidden beneath the blue water. He drove her hard. Crunch. The sound of the impact was the death knell of the ship. She hit the coral. She ground to a halt. Her back was broken. Her timber ribs cracked. Captain Parker and his crew rowed ashore. They claimed the ship had sunk with a valuable cargo. But even in death, the Mary Celeste refused to cooperate with a lie. She did not sink. She stuck fast on the reef. She stood there, defiant, refusing to go under. The insurance inspectors came out. They boarded her. They found the junk cargo. They found the fraud. Captain Parker was ruined. He died in disgrace shortly after. The ship had taken her revenge. And then she was left alone.
She sat on the reef for years. The sun beat down on her deck. The storms of the Caribbean battered her hull. Slowly, piece by piece, the ocean took her back. The wood rotted away. The iron rusted into the coral. The copper sheathing of her hull turned green, and was covered in sea fans and colorful fish. If you were to go to Haiti today and dive down into the warm blue waters, you might find the shape of her. But she is not a ship anymore. She is a garden. She is a home for the fish and the crabs. She has become part of the geography of the ocean. The mystery has been dissolved by the salt water. And now the story is done. The history books are closed. The inquiries are finished. The voices of the past have faded away. The mystery is at rest. The theories are at rest. The people, Benjamin, Sarah, Sophia, are at rest in the arms of the deep. It is time for you to rest as well. I want you to return your mind to the image of the ocean. Forget the ship. Forget the dates. Forget the names. Just see the water. Imagine the Atlantic Ocean. It covers millions of square miles. It is deep and dark and silent. It is the most peaceful place on earth. Imagine that you are floating, not on a boat, not on a raft, but just floating, weightless in the warm embrace of the sea. The water supports you completely. It holds you up. You do not have to make any effort. You do not have to swim. You just have to be. Feel the rhythm of the swell. Rise and fall. Rise and fall.
It is a slow, hypnotic motion. It is the breathing of the planet. It is slower than your heartbeat. It is slower than your breath. With every breath you take, imagine that you are sinking deeper into this relaxation. Inhale the cool, fresh air of the open sea. Exhale the tension of the day. Let it drift away like smoke in the wind. The waves are washing over the history. They are washing over the questions. They are washing over the noise of the world. Nothing matters out here. There are no deadlines. There are no emails. There are no worries. There is only the blue, the deep, endless indigo blue. The sun has set now. The sky is turning a soft velvet black. The stars are coming out above you, the same stars that watched over the Mary Celeste 150 years ago. Look at them. The North Star, steady and true. The Pleiades, a cluster of diamonds. Orion, the hunter. They are steady. They are calm. They are watching over you as you sleep. The wind is a whisper. Shh. It is telling you that it is safe to let go. It is safe to close your eyes. It is safe to drift.
You are drifting away from the shore. You are drifting away from the land. You are drifting into the center of the circle. The silence is wrapping around you like a warm, heavy blanket. The ship has sailed on. She has sailed over the horizon, into the mist, into the dream. She is sailing to a place where the water is always calm, where the wind is always fair, where the family is always together. You can follow her. In your dreams, you can sail. Let the darkness come. Let the quiet come. Your body is heavy. Your mind is still. rise and fall, rise and fall. The ocean is eternal, and so is your rest. Good night.